Blue Box is a romance anime that started airing in October of last year, and on one hand, I have many reasons to recommend it to you, but on the other, there are key annoyances that I have with Blue Box's story that stop me from fully defending it. So with that, I'm going to give you some of the reasons why I both absolutely love, but also equally hate Blue Box. Let's start off with what I love. The main protagonist, Taiki, has actually got something going for him, an up-and-coming high school badminton player who's ambitious and wanting to climb the ranks. It's a frustration of mine with romance and harem anime where an unrealistic expectation is built amongst the young men who are reading or watching these shows because the picture painted in their mind is one of an incredibly attractive woman falling head over heels for a guy for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than the fact that he's the main character. And I think that's really good for the young Christian male to fully comprehend. We gotta be sensible about romance, and I think this anime captures that tension quite well. The setting we're introduced to is relatively original and actually quite realistic compared to a lot of the other romance anime on store, because the reason why I think Taiki has developed a crush on the female lead, Chinatsu, is because they go about the same time, early in the morning, to start training in the gym. Chinatsu's there because she's got a dream to do really well in inter-school basketball, and Taiki's there not only to try catch her attention, but there's an admiration of her which goes just beyond the thought that she's really cute. This isn't just a cute girl, but a cute girl with a dream and with an attitude of working really hard. Chinatsu's definitely also in the running for Christian waifu because she's diligent, she has a goal, a thing that Taiki can then support her, but because Taiki also has dreams and goals, they're both really well equipped to be in a relationship where both of them support each other as they're going through these challenges. Blue Box portrays really well that development of starting to like someone, then that sentiment hopefully resulting in a romantic relationship. There has to be a reason for someone to fall for you. It isn't just enough for you to be the main character, but it's necessary in love for you to work on yourself, to train harder, to be better, to have developed a friendship with a girl in the first place. And Taiki matches all of those boxes. He isn't just generic black-haired male character number 62, but he's actually incredibly fit, demonstrates that he works hard, and he makes an effort to talk to this girl in the first place. Then comes one of the things I hate, which is the circumstance and coincidence that Chinatsu and Taiki find themselves in. In the first episode, we find out that Chinatsu's family is moving overseas, which means that she has to live with a family friend, and what do you know? It looks like that family friend was actually Taiki's family, and from this episode onwards, Chinatsu's going to be living in the same house as Taiki. Part of the reason I hate this setup is because it removes some of those stakes for Taiki. It removes an obstacle between the two of them. The plot still involves moments of how can Taiki still support and work for and pursue Chinatsu, but because of this setup, the plot starts to move away from that and has this thing where most of the conflict between these two is purely because of a lack of communication and misunderstandings being created. And after the first 12 episodes, this is the main conflict point of the plot, which is that there's no communication of feelings between these two, and it annoys me that this is the case. I don't want to exaggerate that Blue Box is emotionally manipulative, and I'd hate to phrase it that way, but I think this anime is also hurt by the love triangle that exists. One where we find out that Taiki's childhood friend, Hina, has actually had a crush on Taiki long before Chinatsu came into the picture. I think it's really frustrating to see these guys not talk about their feelings, to bottle it up, and not simply be straightforward with how they feel towards one another. But this is also the part of what I love about this show, that Blue Box is grounded in some form of realism, because this is often the case amongst teenagers that they don't talk about their feelings with one another. However, we can also look at this as Christians, and I think a parallel can be made with how God might feel with us sometimes. If we feel frustrated or angry with God, maybe it's because we don't really talk to him or spit out what we're actually thinking. And not to mention that we sometimes don't even attempt at trying to listen to his voice. This can also apply to all areas of life for the Christian, but it also applies to all sorts of people, whether they be young or old. It's actually something that I'm well acquainted with, as my field of work involves talking to high schoolers and their worries and their problems, and it is incredibly frustrating to hear some of these stories in the real world, of how they just don't express their feelings and are content with stepping in the background and admiring their crush from afar. So I'm really trying to communicate the sentiment of this video's title, because on one hand, Blue Box is really annoying, but on the other, I can tolerate it because this is just genuinely how teenagers feel a lot of the time. But it is also how a lot of us treat our feelings all the time, and with that, Blue Box becomes very real in the emotion that it tries to capture. Now, as much as I can get really frustrated with the love triangle, it shows how good Blue Box is in making us care about these characters, because we really care about Chinatsu because she's sacrificed so much. She's gone to incredible lengths to make this basketball thing work. So for her, we really want her to succeed, and if by some chance that she also likes Taiki back, then we want those two to be together. But then we look at Hina, the childhood friend who has also done the same, whose self-esteem is so tied to her success in gymnastics, but for her to have also been really close to Taiki for so long, of course we want her to be with Taiki as well. So as much as the love triangle sucks, because it means someone's going to end up unhappy, it highlights Blue Box's ability to make us care about a character, to be invested in them, and that becomes another thing that I love about this anime. We're invested in the stories of each of these teenagers, and that doesn't just mean we're invested in their love life. We are also cheering on for them as they work really hard to do well in inter-school sports. It's funny because when we take a closer look at the story, Blue Box definitely feels way more like a sports anime disguised as a romance. The sports aspect of Blue Box is equally as captivating as the romance bit, because I think we sometimes assume that because we're following the main character, of course they've got to be really overpowered and they've got to succeed, including when they compete in inter-school sports. But this isn't the case. We as the audience are caught up in the excitement of every match that is played, that the main characters might actually lose. And it happens. We're biting at our fingernails up to the point of the climax where we become just as disappointed as they are, and it's such a thing to be able to relate to have worked incredibly hard, to have trained so much, to then expect something out of it after all you've done, and for all that hard work to be wiped away because you're not the only one who's worked really hard to get to this point. I think it's at those times, especially in my own experience, that one decides to depend more on God, to ask for continued strength, to hold back the tears and maintain a stiff upper lip, and to step out in faith with what he's got in store next. I think that's what compels me to keep my rating of Blue Box at around a 7 at this time, because as much as I hate aspects of this show, there's a lot I also love about it. I love that for a romance anime, there's literally no fan service, and I think that's amazing for the story to just focus on the relationship itself. That's the great thing about Blue Box, that it doesn't use the gimmick of immodesty, but it's confident enough of its own story that it doesn't resort to flashing its fans with degeneracy. So for those of you who are Christians, who are watching, I'm okay granting this recommendation to you, because there's a lot of romance anime that will waste your time with really stupid stuff, but Blue Box captures enough of reality and drags you along with its story. The dialogue and setting is well suited to cause us as the audience to really care about these kids, and that's an experience of an anime that I want you guys to also take a part in. This is part of a series on Christian anime season 2, so if you're interested in more of this concept, then this playlist right here is just for you.